الدبابة وين؟
جنبية.
الدبابة جنبكم؟
اه.
ما عم تتحرك ولا واقف؟ نزل حدا منها؟
هي بتتحرك.
تتحرك؟
ميتين.
ميتين؟
اه.
وهم هلا معك بالسيارة؟
اه.
انت هلا وين متخبية هلا؟ وين انت هلا محمية؟
بالسيارة.
جوا السيارة انت صح؟ مش برا السيارة؟
صح.
طيب خليكي يا عمري بالسيارة، انا رح اتمني فاتح الخط معاكي، اتمني احكي معك، ما بدي اسكر التليفون، تمام؟
عمد عينينا ولا
ايش يا عمري؟
خليكي معنا.
يا حبيبتي يا عمري والله معك، هيني انا مش تاركك، بحكي معاكي، ما بدي اصلا اتركك. حبيبتي والله لو بايدي لاذيكي. نحكي يا الله، يا رب تحمينا.
My name is Hind Rajab. I was 6 years old. I just wanted to live. In the final moments of her life, Hind whispered into a phone, trapped in the wreckage of war, begging for her rescue, with her mother and father laying on her side. And that rescue never came. Her story is not an exception. It is a voice of a generation that has been raised under siege, silenced before they could speak their dreams. To understand Gaza, we must look beyond the headlines. Behind every number, there is a name. Behind every war zone, there is a home. Gaza is home to over 2 million Palestinians. They are not defined by conflict, but by endurance. They are students, teachers, doctors, mothers, children, fathers, families, and artists, and all above survivors. Their lives unfold under the weight of the siege and the war, the pain, the occupation, and abandonment. Yet even in these conditions, they have their own identity, which persists, and it begins with language. The language that they say with the stories that they refuse to let die. Arabic is not just spoken in Gaza. It is lived. It carries the poetry of exile and the fire of the resistance. Through their dialect, Gazans preserve a cultural memory, one shared by conquest, shared by colonization, pain, but most of all, resilience. Writers like Mahmoud Darwish remind us, we suffer from an incurable disease called hope. And in Gaza, hope survives in the syllables passed down from mother to child and generation to generation. But language is just one thread woven tightly with faith, love, family, and resistance and community. Gaza is predominantly Sunni Muslim, with a Christian minority that has long coexisted in peace. Religion is not just spiritual, it is communal. Mosques and churches have served as places of worship and peace, education, and mostly as a refugee. When the bombs are falling today, it is often sacred that the shelters keep the wounded safe. Yet these places too have been targeted. Their destruction is just not symbolic and is not collateral. It is a symbol that strikes at the very soul of the Gazas. And the Gazan community has suffered from that. The soul that has endured decades of dispossession. The modern Palestinian struggle began with the Nakba, which by definition it means a catastrophe, in 1948. Over 750,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes. Many found refuge in Gaza. Their descendants remain, still without the right of return. In 1967, Gaza fell under Israeli occupation. Even after the 2005 withdrawal of settlers, the siege began. Land, sea, air, all under the Israeli control. And Gaza became what the UN calls the world's largest open-air prison. But the prison bars are not only physical, they are also economic. Gaza's economy has been methodically dismantled. Israel controls what enters, what exits, and what survives, including the people who survives. Fertile lands are off limits. Fishermen risk their life for every catch. Factories are bombed. Electricity is sacred. Basic goods are rationed. This is not just hardship or a conflict. It is a policy designed to make life unlivable. In this broken economy, daily survival becomes an act of resistance. With industries destroyed and borders sealed, Gaza has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. Over 80% rely on humanitarian aid to eat, to live. Hospitals operate in ruins. Clean water is luxury. Generations grow up in trauma and independency. This isn't accidental. It is a collective punishment, a violation of international law. And while Gaza is still isolated by design, its cries do not fall into a void. Gaza is not alone. It is deeply connected, economically, politically, morally. Institutional bodies like the UN, Human Rights Watch, and the ILO have documented the abuses of the Israeli government. Yet, global action remains symbolic. The world watches, but rarely intervenes. In Latin America, especially Mexico, voices have been rising in solidarity of Palestine. Civil society links Gaza's struggle with border and broader calls of justice, decolonization, and dignity for the original people. Gaza is not just a place, it is a mirror, a symbol of resistance that speaks across oceans and borders. The international community has not been silent on Gaza, but it has been ignored. Since 1948, dozens of UN resolutions affirmed the Palestinians' rights to self-determination, to return, to protection under international law. Resolutions 242, 338, and 194 remain unfulfilled. The Fourth Geneva Convention, signed by 190 nations, has prohibited collective punishment and the targeting of civilians. Still, Gaza hospitals, schools, and water systems are targeted and have collapsed. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said, "The humanitarian situation in Gaza is a stain on the collective conscience of the international community." These are not just opinions. They are legal classifications, and they demand accountability. To look away is not neutrality. It is complicity. The people of Gaza do not dream of war. They dream of dignity, of raising their children under skies without drones, of planting olive trees and watching them grow in peace, having a future together in the international community, in a place to talk. To stand with Gaza is not to take sides. It is to choose humanity. In the face of bombs, they plant. In the face of silence, they sing. We must listen. We must act. Because silence is complicity. And justice is long overdue. And as this video is ending, I'm gonna present the ambassador of the Palestinian state in Mexico.
Hi everyone, happy to be with you today and answer some questions. The first question I was asked is, what would you tell people about Palestinian identity? What defines Palestinian identity? Who are the Palestinians? I would say that the first thing that comes to my mind is that the Palestinians are an ancient, rooted, and diverse people. Farmers, we are poets, we're teachers, we're artists, we're students, and we're human rights defenders. We come from cities, villages, refugee camps, and all over the world. You know, there's so many Palestinians in diaspora, but we are bound together by a shared love for our land, for our culture, and our history. Palestinian identity is defined by resilience, memory, and an unbreakable spirit. I mean, we've had to, having to endure more than 7 decades of dispossession and exile and occupation and apartheid. And despite that, we continue to live, create, and resist, holding on to our language, our traditions, and dreams with fierce dignity. The second question is, what are the most misconceptions the world has about Palestinians? Well, I think that, you know, we are so much more than just our suffering and the tragedy that people see on the news all the time. We are only seen in that kind of perspective sometimes in the media, and either as shown and depicted as terrorists or passive victims, and it rarely capture our humanity, our culture, our joy. People often assume that we are born into violence, and we are not. We are born into families and traditions and music and deep community ties. Many don't realize the different talents that we have, and the Palestinians not only living in the Middle East and in Palestine, but also in the diaspora, the different diversity that we have. We are not just a people surviving oppression, but living fully and loving fiercely despite it. We find joy in all the moments we possibly can. What would you like more people to know about daily life in Palestine besides the headlines? And I would just say that it's true that life in Palestine is full of contradictions. Joy under siege, wedding in ruins, laughter and during a genocide. Children go to school under occupation. Artists paint walls of, separation, and families gathered for iftar, even when food is scarce and there is no food getting into, which we saw in Gaza during the genocide, that when Ramadan came, that is the month of fasting for the Muslims, in the rubble, they gathered and they installed a huge table for people to come together and to eat together. There is beauty in every day. We find beauty in every day because we love life. We find beauty in our cuisine, in our music, in our embroidery, in our storytelling, and also in our deep pain. What I want people to know is that we are not just surviving, but we are living. We are living with love, creativity, and resistance. How do Palestinians keep hope and love alive across generations, especially in the face of so much adversity? We tell stories. We're storytellers. We pass down the keys to homes that we were expelled from. We sing lullabies about our return to our homeland. Grandmothers teach embroidery with the names of lost villages stitched into every thread. Hope is not abstract for us. It's an inheritance. Love is an act of resistance. Despite everything, we dance our debka, which is our traditional dance at weddings. We plant olive trees, and we teach our children to never forget who they are. As they say about Palestinians, that they thought we would forget, but they didn't know that we were the seeds. When do you think of Palestine? What sounds, smells, or places come to your mind first? Well, first, I always think about the call to prayer echoing through the hills of Jerusalem, the scent of satar, which is something that is a staple in Palestinian cuisine and on the table in every Palestinian house. Jasmine, the smell of jasmine, the smell of freshly baked bread. I think of the olive groves of the West Bank, the beach in Gaza. I think of my grandparents' home, the old stone walls, and fig trees and pomegranate trees. And also in Palestine, we have something that you have in Mexico, which cactus fruit. Which is in Arabic is called sabr, which means patience, because it grows in all of the places in Palestine, including the ones where the villages were destroyed by Israel in 1948. Palestine for me is very sensory. It lives, and I think for all Palestinians, it lives in our memories, in the land, and the smells of breakfast and the songs sung during the olive orchards in Palestine or at weddings. If you could send a message to Mexican students about Palestine, what would it be? I would really say that the young generation and what I've seen in Mexico, you guys are brilliant and fierce, and the solidarity is so real that you are the future, and the future needs people like you. It needs courage, it needs clarity, and it needs solidarity. Please don't look away. Don't normalize what's happening, because nothing about it is normal. Educate yourselves, understand more about Palestine, not just only what's happening in the headlines, but who we are, what kind of people we are, about our culture, especially at a time when they're trying to erase our entire identity. Raise your voices. What is happening in Palestine is not far from you. It is a struggle for humanity and dignity and justice that should touch all of us. And I think students like you have to stand with the truth, even when it's difficult. And remember that everything you do, whether it's boycotting a product that profits the Israeli occupation or genocide, or whether it's reposting something about Palestine or talking to people about Palestine, all of this matters. And your solidarity matters more than you know. So thank you. Free Palestine.